But they were not very.
Looks like we're ready to go. I'd like to welcome everyone to this regular meeting of the Delray Oaks City Council. And a roll call.
Councilmember Berger,
Here.
Councilmember Sherman,
Here.
Councilmember Halleck,
Here.
Councilmember Ely, Mayor Donaldson.
Here. Please join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item is public comment. General public comment must deal with matters subject to the jurisdiction of the city and the council that are not on the agenda. Anyone wishing to address the city council on matters not appearing on the agenda may do so now. There'll be a time limit of no more than 3 minutes per speaker. No action will be taken on matters brought up under this item, and all comments will be referred to staff. Public comments now open.
Thank you, Mayor Donaldson, members of the city council, Mr. Lurk and Mr. Gerton. My name is Nikki Neff and happy Earth Day. I'm here representing the Monterey Bay chapter of the California Native Plants Foundation, CNPS. 2.5 months ago, the CNPS chapter president, Brian Lanier, sent a letter to you all volunteering once again to help the city conserve one of the city assets, the Delray Oaks Habitat Reserve, which is at the corner of General Jim Moore Boulevard and South Boundary Road. Back in the late 1990s, this roughly 4.5 acre property was identified by CNPS as a very special site for rare plants. And in 1999, the parcel was ultimately set aside for permanent protection as a CEQA mitigation. When an attempt was made to reroute South Boundary Road through the middle of the protected plant reserve, CNPS filed a lawsuit. After 2 years of structured mediation with the city, the CEQA mitigation was successfully defended and the protection of the habitat reserve was endorsed by the City Council of Delray Oaks. CNPS and Delray Oaks have a legally binding settlement agreement and a deed restriction has been recorded. The settlement agreement stipulates that no vegetation can be removed, and CNPS interprets this to be the very sensitive native vegetation. The settlement agreement also stipulates that, and I quote, "The habitat reserve shall be protected in perpetuity, and nothing shall be done that may degrade or adversely impact the property and its conservation/biological values." Conservation and biological values are currently being degraded, particularly around the edge of the reserve, where rare plant habitat is being taken over by a very invasive, aggressive, non-native shrub, French broom, also called Demista sometimes. Each mature broom shrub can produce thousands of seeds in one spring season. And the window for removing this plant and protecting the biological integrity of the reserve is closing. So the settlement agreement says no vegetation can be removed, but weeds are degrading the habitat reserve. Last year, our offer to assist the city in safeguarding the biological integrity of your city's asset as unpaid volunteers was denied. Our renewed offer this year has not been answered. Letting weeds overcome the rare plants is a clear violation of our legally binding settlement agreement. We have, through state CNPS, organizational liability waivers that every participant in a CNPS event has to sign. I'm almost done. We're happy to sign any kind of liability waiver the city may have as well. We don't want contentious debate. We want constructive collaboration to solve the problem of habitat degradation, and we're waiting for your timely response to our inquiry. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Alice Green and I live on Saucedo Avenue, and I would like to support everything the previous speaker just said. 100%. This has been an ongoing issue. Let's deal with it differently.
Any other public comment? Seeing none, public comment is now closed. Our next item is a poetry reading from our very own Patrice Vecchione in honor of National Poetry Month.
I read poetry every month of the year, but for those of you who don't. For the last few years, I've been the poet in schools for the Carl Cherry Poetry Program. This year, I led writing workshops in 9 Monterey County high schools. Some of my students are terrified that they may come home from school to find their hardworking parents have been picked up by ICE. This is a stressful time for all Americans who believe in democracy and justice, and it's particularly difficult for many young people. The author Salman Rushdie said, "Poetry can't stop a bullet, but we are not helpless. We can sing the truth and name the liars." As promised, I'll read 2 poems, both by local high school students. And this evening, I'm reading them in memory of Pope Francis, who represented human rights, the rights like respect, human dignity, and empathy, rights that we should all stand for. And here are the 2 poems. First, by Gina Alvarez. It's called Take Me Back. Take me back to the simpler times when there were no heartbreaks, only your mom saying no to ice cream or candy. Take me back to the times where imagination thrived, when being alone was boring, when grades didn't matter, when we were innocent, when thoughts were mere suggestions. Take me back to when princesses and fairy tales were the future, when money didn't matter, when the worst thing they could say, no, didn't exist, when staying up late was cool, when growing up was fun. Take me back to when we didn't have a care in the world, when we didn't care what people thought, when we didn't worry about the day before yesterday, when nothing was permanent, when daisies swayed and were trampled by our little feet in a race by who could get to mother first. That's Gina Alvarez. And the last one I'll read is called Land of the Free by Devin Wells. I've always considered myself neutral when it came to politics. I always figured that collaboration should trump polarization, that conversation is more productive than argument. So from a somewhat unbiased point of view, here's what I have noticed this year. Empty promises constantly flood the zone. Quote, "On day 1, I'll slash prices so fast it'll make their heads spin." Yet the only thing making my head spin is how fast the prices continue to grow. The catchphrase of "Make America Great Again" truly confuses me. Because when has America been greater? Was it when people were dying working factory jobs for small wages? Or was it when nuclear war was an imminent threat? Sounds absurd, right? Because it is. It's absurd how a man who claims to love struggling Americans creates policies that benefit those who are well off more than those who are actually struggling. Well, that's an inconsistency. That's a contradiction. That's simply a perplexing paradox. It's absurd that a man would be so openly corrupt, advertising his billionaire friend's business in front of the White House, amazed at how everything's computer, as his best bud spouts Reddit humor as political convention saying, I am become mean. I just wish that all of that made sense to me. I do too. At this time, when our democracy is being threatened from within, it's extremely important to know where we stand and to stand there. I stand with these students, with our Constitution. I stand for protecting the earth, for due process, science, intellectual freedom, for women's right to make our own decisions, for all United States civil liberties that are currently in jeopardy. What our country is enduring increases the responsibility of local government to be forthright and transparent. The residents of Delray Oaks are counting on all of you. Thank you so much.
This item is a proclamation celebrating Arbor Day 2025. Whereas this holiday was first observed in 1872 with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, it's now observed throughout the nation and the world to recognize the many benefits trees provide to our world. To maintain our tree city status, the city, in cooperation with volunteers from the Delray Oaks Citizens Action Group, under the leadership of Denise Wood, planted 70 trees received from the Right Tree, Right Place program, in which PG&E donates trees to plant in the local community. I urge all citizens to support the efforts to protect our trees and our woodlands, and to plant trees to promote the well-being of this and future generations. Therefore, I, Scott Donaldson, Mayor of Delray Oaks, do hereby proclaim April 25th, 2025 as Arbor Day in our city. All right, our next item is the consent agenda. Are there any items that the council would like to pull? I have seen none. Are there any items that the public would like to pull? Okay, seeing none, I'll accept the motion. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. None opposed, motion passes. Okay, old business, we have none. New business is to review the draft FY 2025-26 budget. And with that, I'll turn it over to the manager.
Thank you, Mayor. So we're pretty early in this budget development process, and there are still a number of there's still a number of unknowns out there. We don't have all of the budgets in yet from the sister agencies that we work with and the different agreements that we're under. On Thursday, Roberto and I will be meeting with HDL, who are our auditors who track our sales tax, property tax for us. So right now, all we have is their statewide average and the forecast for the state. But on Thursday, we'll be getting their region specific and Delray Oaks specific forecast for the next coming years. So that'll give us a better picture of where we are from a revenue standpoint. So this is just a first blush at the budget and where we want to be with the budget. It's what I would refer to as a status quo budget. Basically, which means that we're keeping service levels where they currently are. So this is just the start of discussions. And then next month, we'll start talking about projects again, talking about capital projects, what the plan is going forward. If there's any modifications from what was approved by the city council the last couple of years for our capital project program. And then if there are any additional services or any additional projects that the council wants to consider for inclusion in the budget, then we'll come back and be able to present to you what that looks like, if we're able to accommodate that in the budget, and if not, what might be taken out. And if, the priorities change. So this is our time to talk about that and talk about priorities. what your plan is for the next coming year, and then we'll, bring that back to you and tell you how we can accomplish your goals if you lay them out for us. So right now, Roberto's going to, kind of go through, give an overview of the budget. I'll jump in occasionally, editorialize. Okay, thanks, Rob.
Yeah, Mayor Donaldson, members of the council. I'd like to, when talking about numbers, I'd like to show and tell. It's easier to see them as I'm talking about numbers, to point to them rather than all of us looking at that piece of paper. So this is towards the end of the document that you received. This is just a summary of the general fund. The first thing that stands out is the fact that this is the first year that we're talking 5 million. This is the first time the budget will be hitting $5 million, just barely, but it's there. The other item that stands out, it is matches dollar for dollar revenues to expenditures. So there is no leeway, there's no surplus in this operating budget, there's actually not even a contingency. And the reason for that is, keep in mind that the budget is basically driven by the amount of revenue that the city gets. You can't spend what you don't have. This was based on the estimated revenues at this point, so we used every penny that we could there. A couple of highlights are the fact that revenues are going up about 4.8% over last year, and expenditures are going up about 2.8%. So like I said, there's not much of an increase. There's actually not even a COLA here for the employees. It's just step increases. The increases that you see on the right-hand side, increase or decrease, are where you see an increase is basically one of three things. The city's insurance programs have gone up. Those we don't control. Health insurance premiums are going up. The city doesn't control that. Liability insurance has gone up. Fortunately, workers' comp has come down a little bit to help offset some of those. And there's a 911 dispatch cost, which the county handles. So remember, we just received we pay what they say it needs to be. Actually, what I'd like to do is just give you a quick overview, and then we can jump into the details. If you look at the budget towards the bottom, starting from the bottom, Parks and Recreation and Public Works are both showing decreases. Twofold: one, there's been a lot of work that's been done around the city, so there's not as much repair and maintenance, but also Ron Fucci doesn't have enough time to do some of the smaller maintenance with all the other projects that are going on in the city. So we're working. The budget is based on the resources that we have available, some of them being the human effort that's available. So Public Works and Parks and Rec are going down a little bit, working our way up from the bottom. Fire departments, about 2.8%. And again, that's on a contract with the city of Seaside. I believe you'll begin that contract here pretty soon. I'm not sure if it's been finalized, but that's based on the current numbers. It's a slight increase there. The largest increase dollar-wise, you'll notice, is the police department at 183.4. That is, again, we'll take a look at that. The cost liability insurance, especially for the police department, is a larger increase than the rest. The other numbers where you see increases are basically a matter of them. These premiums that I mentioned and the finance, the reason for the decrease is because in the current year, there was a fee study, which is not going to be repeated next year. So that's the reason for that decrease. So overall, I mean, overall the budget is balanced, but there is no leeway, there's no contingencies. We're calling this a draft budget because, as John mentioned, there's still some revenue that we don't know the numbers for. We're taking the best guess that's been provided. Towards the end of this week, we'll know exactly what those are. So next month, you will have the final proposed budget for the city. Now, since this budget is driven by the revenue that the city receives, I would like to just kind of go over some of those, hit some of the highlights regarding the revenues for the city that you need to be aware of how this budget was developed. And keep in mind that when developing the budget, we tend to be conservative with regards to revenue projections and also on the expenditure side to make sure that we cover all the costs. The items that you see, I highlighted some of the more important ones. The PT is property tax. That's the first revenue source that all cities get. And that has a 2% increase because that is, the city's guaranteed 2% by law. It'll get that. It might be more than that depending on how much property sells in the city, but that's only a 2% increase. The other big item highlighted is the sales tax, not only sales tax, but the two revenue measures that you have. Right now, we have a 1.6% increase. That's what HCL, the company that monitors all of this, not only for the city, but throughout the state. That's what they're estimating for next year. We'll find out what it is gonna be for us locally here by the end of this week, so this will probably change. So those are very minimal increases. The next one down though is a larger increase, that's the transient occupancy tax. And that is one that the council did have some control over. You raised the rate, you set the number of units that can be rented, so we are because of that, and it has been used quite a bit ever since it was implemented. The revenue has been going up each and every single year, so next year, we're anticipating 229.5 for the transient occupancy tax, which is, it's not the hotel, we don't have hotels here, but the short-term rentals. The tax that's generated from those. The other major revenue items, there's $60,000 in this next year's budget. For the fees that are supposed to come in from the fee study that was conducted, those fees are gonna go into place July 1. This is what the consultant said we can expect. We'll have to see exactly how it plays out, so it is a new source. Well, that is $60,000 that we're relying on, that's making all the numbers match. So bottom line, on the revenues, it's very conservative, we're not anticipating much growth. Some of it is gonna be driven by the economy, we'll have to see what sales tax does. And then how these new fees come into play. The other major revenue source, the single largest one, is the airport police services agreement. That has a 9.4% increase, and this one is really basically half of the police department. And the airport pays for that, plus an administrative fee on top of that. So as the police department budget goes up, as we saw on the other slide, the revenue that we get from the airport goes up because they're paying for half of that. And those items are the ones that make up the $5 million revenue side of the budget. Maybe I'll pause there for a second. Any questions or regarding the revenues? This is what the budget is based on.
All right, any questions from the council?
I just have, and I'm gonna ask maybe some nitpicky questions, just because sometimes I think there's some interesting things that come from that. Like on this, on your screen right now, you talk about miscellaneous revenues decreasing by 15,000. Can you just describe what that miscellaneous revenue is for everyone?
Okay, I don't have the details on it, but typically there's items that come in once a year, and this maybe John might recall. Which one
Yeah,
this is.
so, yeah, this is kind of a catch-all for things that weren't planned and just kind of come in haphazardly. And the reason for the significant reduction is because this is based on our modified budget for this year, which was modified because we got an insurance reimbursement for something that we paid out, and then we'll reimburse, so this is where
That's where it landed.
this one landed, right? So now we're adjusting next year, so we're not expecting that to happen again next year.
Okay. Thank you, that's it.
Any other questions from the council
On the revenues.
on the revenue side? From the public, any questions on the revenue? Go ahead, Mike.
I got a question on your airport contract that you have. I think it's a good deal for the airport and for the city of Del Oaks.
Mike, sorry, so that the people online can hear, can you come up to the podium, please?
Thank you. Did you play?
We want to capture it for the video.
I'll start. I have a question about the contract that we have with the airport and the city of Del Oaks. I think it's a very good deal for the city and for the airport. My question is, I'm a little curious as to Monterey's right there, the city of Monterey, that surround the airport more or less. Were they involved in the negotiations for the contract and they didn't get it, or they just didn't get involved? That's my question.
You want to take that?
Maybe Chris knows, I wasn't here at the time, but I believe, so having worked for the city of Monterey in a past life and negotiating contracts like this, I don't know what the circumstances were when the previous city manager Dino Pick and the executive director of the airport got together. So I don't know what drove that. From my perspective, it was cost, and we can provide a higher level of service at a much lower cost than the city of Monterey can. So I think if we had our own fire department, they would be contracting with us for that too.
Yeah, any other questions from the public? All right, Robert, continue.
Yeah, so the rest of it is operating costs, and if you want, because this. In this case, we're just talking purely operating costs, I'm gonna just hit a few highlights. I won't go through all the numbers, because there's a lot of numbers here, but just a couple items, you know, the city council. There's a 1.6% increase, really status quo, no changes at all in the city council budget. Where we start seeing some increases though are in, after council, we have the city clerk, I believe. And in that case, which is what you're gonna see for all the other departments, health insurance has gone up. Went up in this case, and then workers' comp went down. That you'll see that in all the different departments. Insurance liability also went up. Those went up throughout, those changes were reflected throughout the entire budget. The other item that stands out in the city clerk's budget is the, let's see, the election. You have the election.
It was,
Oh, okay. Okay, I lost it there somewhere, but the main increases are those items, and then here the election costs us a decrease of 14.5, so that helps offset because that is anticipating an election this next fiscal year. When it comes to the city manager's budget, again, liability insurance has gone up, and that's really the biggest cost driver of that 14,000, whatever the increase is, the liability insurance of almost the same amount. On the finance side, there's a decrease of 20,000 because again, that fee study that is done this year is not gonna be repeated. Other than that, everything is status quo, remains the same. On the legal side, likewise, $350 slight increases for running purposes, but legal staying the same. Planning and building also is staying the same. We're just reallocating costs between economic development and planning services. But there's no increases in any of those costs at this point for next year. The government buildings, it's a slight increase costs we reallocated costs for PG&E among departments, so this one went up a little bit, but it's total PG&E costs did not go up, it's just where we put it. The big change in the non-departmental is this decrease of 52,000 for the pollution legal liability, which the city paid this year. And that's for the four properties. Policy, it's good for 5 years.
10 years.
10 years.
So we appreciate 10 years of coverage.
So you won't be seeing that one for the next few years. Other than that, non-departmental staying the same. Then we get to the largest portion of the budget is in the police department, and again, health insurance is going up. Liability insurance went up, and then the 911 costs from the county are also going up. And those numbers, the city doesn't control any of those numbers. The total increase is a 6.6%. There's still a real major decrease in this because we're not buying a vehicle this year. Otherwise, there would be more cost here, but as you can tell, the police department, there's ups and downs, little ones, but overall, there's no major changes in any of the departments up to now. Including the Seaside, it's a contract, so it's just a small increase based on the agreement with Seaside. In public works, as I mentioned, only a slight decrease in repair and maintenance. So the roads have been pretty well worked on, and Ron hasn't been spending that much money on the streets right now, but he's doing it himself. And likewise on the parks, there's reduced costs there. And again, when you get down to the total, it's 5,051,051, it matches, it's based on what revenue we have. If we get more revenue, we may come back with some other adjustments based on whatever we can find out from HDL and the sales tax. But that's just a quick review. As John said, status quo, we're really not changing anything. Any place that costs can stay the same, they have costs that are out of our control. That's where there's been some changes. more than happy to answer any specific questions about this portion.
Yeah, so really quick, if you can go back to the top of the revenue page. So you see, our primarily outside of the police contract, our revenues are pretty much property tax and sales tax. And then after that, we get to transient occupancy tax. And then the cannabis tax used to be coming in really well, and that was our bridge through some bad years. But that's tailed off as the cannabis industry's declined. So our revenue streams are very narrow and they're subject to economic downturns. And so that's why you see the budget that you see before us is, we're better off than some other cities that, in the big years, the tendency is to want to increase services and to want to increase staff and increase your costs that go along with that. But in government, that's hard then to pull back. And so previous city councils, for a long time, the city has been really good at maintaining current existing service levels and not really expecting a lot of new service and pushing for a lot of new service. And we didn't go out and buy the boat when we couldn't afford the boat, the maintenance on the boat. So we just keep within our means and keep going. So this budget reflects that. And so unlike a lot of the other cities in the region, we're not looking at cuts and we're not looking at laying off staff, which is a testament to previous councils and previous staff who instilled that ethos here in the city of really tracking the budget and maintaining the budget and not getting out ahead of ourselves and budgeting beyond our means. So right now, current economy, the way things are, we're doing really well. But Roberto will tell you, we are budgeting to known expenditures within the revenues that we have. But we can get outside of that very quickly and very easily, especially if we start adding new services and adding new projects and new things like that. So it's normal if you want to spend reserves on things like that. Other cities do that. They even do it in good years where they dip into their reserves to pay for priority projects and priority issues that they want to deal with now. So that is an option. We do have a very solid reserve. So something to be thinking about as you're thinking about what your priorities are for the next year. That is an option, but this is a very conservative budget and the economy is kind of uncertain right now. So I don't know what direction we could be going in 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, 12 months. So we could be coming back mid-year and looking at tougher decisions, or we could be coming back mid-year and looking at opportunities for new expenditures and new services. So I just don't know. My crystal ball's not that good this year. But this is a testament to the staff. They really went through this with a fine-tooth comb and really made some hard decisions on where they can make some cuts. We will be putting back some money in some of the areas because I just don't agree necessarily where some of the money is taken out. We're going to keep up the level of training that we've been doing and getting the staff fully trained so that we can transition some of the services, no offense, Robert, but some of the services from RGS to the staff, the team that we've built up. Ron, everybody's heard me say, if you haven't met Ron and you haven't listened to Ron loves to say that he does things by dollar store. And so Ron, everything you see out there in the public, in the parks, everything, Ron is down to the penny when he's working his relationships and getting us every bargain that he can to provide the highest level of service that he can, but he's very cognizant of the cost of his operations to the city and to you all, the taxpayers. But we want to get him some help and get some more stuff done too. So we don't want him to burn out and run away from us either. So, there's been some deferred maintenance that hasn't happened because you've seen the major projects going on. And so we want to get him some help because he's doing so much project management work that he's not accustomed to because we're doing so many major repair projects and new projects like Fortag. And that's taking his time with a lot of project management. So it's drawn him away from his regular maintenance duties. So we want to backfill that with some contract work. So we'll be bringing that back to you all too, for budget augmentation is what I would call it. And Roberto and I need to sharpen our pencils and see how we're gonna fit that in if we can with our existing revenues, and then if not, maybe dipping into a little bit of reserves or something like that. So, but all that being said, please focus on what our revenue sources are, because we don't have a lot of opportunity here to expand our revenue streams. And so one impact in one area can really have a negative impact on our budget. So if and when we do have development in the future on the former corridor, that's going to be my primary focus, is on opportunities for the community to expand its revenue source so that the community as a whole can be sustainable going forward. So that's my soapbox speech. So, well said.
Okay, and if I may continue, so that was the general fund, which is basically what the city runs on. We're talking about the operating budget. The city's operating budget is made up of not just the general fund, but as you see on the screen, also the gas tax fund. Monies that are collected on gas tax are remitted to the city. The city gets about 48.5, of which about 33,000 is spent as by law only on street related items. So street sweeping and street lighting is basically where the city spends its money. And there's a little bit that's building up that can be used also for projects. It takes a while to build up money though at this pace for any major project.
I think for this presentation, we're just gonna leave it at the general fund, operating fund, yeah, because next month when we come back, we'll talk about projects and the capital projects, and that's more specific to these special funds. Talk about what we've accomplished already over the last few years, where we are in our capital improvement program, and what we see as the needs for the next 3, 4, 5 years.
Okay. There's any questions?
All right, yeah, we'll start with the council first. Questions, Councilmember Shirley?
All right, so again, some nitpicky questions that, this is the second time going through this. We went through this in the finance committee, and so as a dedicated council person, I went through it again and just more questions come up. So I don't know if you want to bring it back up, so that we can see. I don't know why I've never done this calculation, but for the council member stipend at 7,500. But it seems as though every year we should only spend 6,300. Why is it set at 7,500? I'm calculating what we get paid per month times 12. That seems to come out to 6,300, but we budgeted 7,500.
Originally, there was also an additional dollar amount for the mayor, which I don't know that the mayor's ever.
He gets paid more than we do.
No, I mean, what was it called?
Yeah,
It was
when the previous mayor was created, right, it was the mayor's. I don't remember I can get back to it.
It was like-
But it was basically like for the mayor to promote the city.
Yeah.
Is that separate then from the stipend?
Or actually,
Yeah. But for this,
With your calculations, how did you calculate it?
I calculated 525, right? Because you get 125, we get 100. So 525 times 12. Which gives us to 6,300.
So I think what needed to be included was that 100 that is included for the mayor.
So well, how much do you get paid?
It's $250 a month.
You get 250 a month.
Yes. And I
Okay,
think you guys, when I was a council member, got 150 a month,
we
right?
get 100.
Is it 150 or 100?
We get paid $100.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, that's
And you're at
why
250.
250,
And so that's-
100, yeah.
Yes, I need a calculator. Okay,
we'll definitely take a look at that number.
Okay.
You do it.
okay. I had something good. You made so much, Mayor. Okay.
I'm bringing it in, big bang.
Bring it in.
Yeah.
Not as much as some other mayors, though. Okay, I had a question about the travel expenses in the council category. I know sometimes we have planning commissioners who need to travel, which is good. I was just wondering, does that come out of the council? The travel category, or does it come out of like another category?
I'm getting the nod that the planning commissioner comes out of the council.
Comes out of council, yeah. All right. Let's see, I'm sorry, I have to say this again. I said it in the finance committee, but the auto allowance increase for the city manager should have been that should not be there. So that needs to be fixed. I was curious, in government buildings and in the police categories, we both have utilities PG&E, and they're both at $8,000. Like, are we estimated to spend $16,000? I'm assuming it's just this building here.
Yes, so everything used to be in this building here. Now we're trying to split everything that we can. Basically 50-50 between the police department and here, because the cost of the police department is shared by the airport.
Oh, got it.
So if we're only charging utilities to the government building and the police is not sharing in it, then the airport.
Right.
That's paid for the utilities, but they are necessary to run the police department.
Yeah. Okay, no, that's a very good reason for that. Okay, so 16,000 in PG&E. Okay. All right. In the police category, there was also a decrease, I know, in the vehicle replacement category. Because we're not buying a vehicle, but are we putting money away every year?
Yeah, we created a vehicle replacement fund, so we're putting money into that every year, so.
Okay, so that's
When it
not
comes time to
under the
replace
police.
one, we have it.
Okay, but so that's not under the police category,
No, it's a separate fund, and then
right?
when it comes time for the police to replace one of their vehicles, then it'll reflect in their budget for that fiscal year
Got
with the transfer in from the vehicle replacement
Got
fund.
it, okay, good, thank you. Yeah, just, the decrease in, expenditures for public works, City Manager Burton mentioned getting help for Ron, and I just want to say again how much I support that. I really feel like there's a lot going on, and if we can support him, I think that would be good. I also want to know, let's see, I think this is under police, the stormwater project phase 4. I was just wondering if, that minus 8,500, do we know what that is?
So this invoice comes from Waterway One Water. For their services for the storm, they manage the city storm sewer. There's some reporting that needs to be done to the state and they take care of all of that. The costs have gone down from, they used to run in the $24,000, but again, we don't control that one,
Yeah,
but we'll take any decreases.
yeah, for sure, okay. And then, just to note that we should be finding out what our organic waste, service cost will be. We should figure that out soon. I know we're gonna pass that at Regen next month, so that could go into the budget soon, so. So I guess my last question is for the city manager. Looking at this, I know it's kind of status quo, but what would you say the operational needs of the city are that are not being met by this operational budget?
Well, I would love to have 50 more staff. It's really not a matter of operational needs not being met, it's just if we want to add anything, then. Right now, we're managing to the level of service that the city has
Yeah.
had for years.
Yeah.
So it's just no growth.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you. That's it for me.
All right, Councilmember Berger.
No, sir.
All right, Vice Mayor Howard.
Thank you, Mayor. There are no questions at this time. Thank you for that report, Mr. Moreno.
All right, I'll take it out to the public. Are there any public comments, questions regarding the budget?
Yeah, I had a
Alice,
question.
could you come up?
Yes,
Thank you.
yeah, I'm Alice Green. My question is about that expenditure, the $52,000 that you were saying, pays for, stuff that lasts for 10 years. Are you setting money aside for that every year? Because it's gonna come up again. Just like the car replacement thing.
Not right now, because so what that is that's liability coverage for the former Fort Ord properties that we inherited from Fora.
Well, nothing's gonna happen out there anytime soon, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, so if we are successful in entering into a development agreement with a developer who then takes the interest in the parcel out there for development, then the requirements for liability, most of that would transfer to them, so we don't know what that looks like yet.
So it's a little bit of wishful thinking is what you're saying.
I'm not budgeting for it. but-
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's wishful thinking, certainly on my part, that the city would no longer have liability on owning that open space out there that has some problems with it, yeah. But yeah, we're 10 years out, 52. As we go farther in and figure out
So you're
what's gonna happen.
kind of going like this.
No, not really, no.
Okay.
$52,000 is not a big capital outlay that requires 10 years of planning, so. we can
Yeah,
come
it's
up with
just, it's just easy. I mean, if you set a little money aside every year, it's easy to save up over 10 years, where it becomes less easy the longer you wait.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah, we can accomplish that if and when we need to.
okay.
Any other questions, comments from the public? All right, Roberto, thank you for your presentation. I just want to reiterate some of the things that were said. I think the city manager did a great job kind of summing up things, and I think a few things worth repeating. This is a balanced budget, and a lot of cities and jurisdictions out there don't have that. Although it's tight, revenue equals expenditures. We do have that balanced budget where there's been no cut in services, so the services that our residents have grown to accept and approve or enjoy will still be there. I want to emphasize our revenue streams are very narrow and it's tenuous. Based on some of the things the city manager had to say about the economy, we don't know what's going to happen there. And our heavy reliance on our sales tax, particularly with Safeway. So if you look at our top 3 revenue sources, to kind of give you an idea of that. Number 1 is sales tax, heavily reliant on Safeway. Number 2 is property tax, but that should stay pretty steady. We're built out, so there's not an increase in number of houses, so you won't see that dramatically improve over time. And number 3 being the transient occupancy tax that we get from 25 short-term rentals. That just goes to show you how tenuous that can be and subject to a lot of changes in the economy, both sales tax and our transient occupancy tax. On the expenditure side, I just want to congratulate the city manager and the staff. They have been very conscientious in expenditures. They've been very conservative with their spending. There's nothing wasteful within our budget. A lot of the costs have gone down due to that conscientious approach from the city manager on down. So everyone should feel very comfortable and very confident that the city is spending their money wisely. What that's allowed us to do is build up a reserve. So we've got a reserve for emergencies. For example, if there is a severe downturn in the economy, we can use that money that we've got saved. Or a situation like Safeway moving out and nobody moves in, kind of like a situation with the Stone Creek Kitchen that you see down at the Stone Creek area where it sits vacant. Something like that would have a serious impact on this city. So we do have the funds in reserve to address that. And then we also have the funds to address our capital projects, which we'll do at the next meeting. So we have those funds to address a lot of those projects that we haven't gotten to because we didn't have the money to do it. So now we're in a situation where we can address it and we've got the funds to take a look at that. And before the next meeting, we will take a look at those projects and prioritize them so the council can come back and make the final decision on how that money is going to be spent. So, you know, overall, it is a solid financial standing that we're on. The only thing that concerns me, and the city manager touched on it as well, is, you know, the economic factors that we're not aware of. The other thing that wasn't really talked about is one of the reasons why we're in this situation is because we received a lot of government funding. And as you know, that probably is something that we cannot count on going forward, that we're gonna get a lot of grants or a lot of money coming down to municipalities. So that's the other thing that concerns me in a lot of ways and leads me to take that more conservative, conscientious approach with what we do. Particularly given the history of this city and what our budget used to look like in the past. So I just wanted to point those things out. Once again, I really appreciate all the work from the city manager and the staff to have a budget that is in this good a shape. Okay, so with that, I'll move on to our next item, which is reports and correspondence. And the city manager has a city manager report.
So just a couple things, the chief asked me to let everyone know, so TAMC is working on a regional project that's called Vision Zero. And the intent of that project is to try to work on problem areas and communities and around the region on reducing vehicle accidents that cause injuries or deaths. Obviously, the name says it, with the vision of getting it down to zero, which is a very ambitious task. So that's starting up regionally here and May 19th, is that right? Yeah, so tentatively, or is that tentative or?
When is the warrants due, right?
It's on May 27th, I believe.
May 27th.
29th.
So May 29th, but keep an open mind because that may change, but we're trying to coordinate with TAMC to schedule a town hall meeting here to get input from the community for them to explain in better detail than I have at my fingertips right now, what that project looks like. And again, with the end goal of making our streets safer for everybody. So keep that in the back of your mind. Also, the Acorn, we're going to be coming out at the end of this week. What? End of this week, we're shooting for a spring Acorn. It's going to be a digital edition of the Acorn, so it'll be in everybody's email inbox. Laura has been doing a great job of digitizing that for us. We've contracted with Constant Contact so that we can provide more effective, glossy emails that go out to everybody that will connect back to our website. You'll be able to click on hyperlinks and it'll take you to information. So we're trying to get information out to the public in a more user-friendly format. But more importantly, it'll also give us metrics on, you know, how many people we're reaching, who's reading them, who's forwarding them, all that kind of stuff. So it'll be good information. It'll help us tailor our communication with the community a little bit better and get information out to you all more effectively. So be looking for that in your inbox. And then I told George Jackshaw that I would do a pitch for the ice cream social on Saturday. If you're in town, please come down. Hopefully the weather will be nice. I know there's potential rain on Friday night, but it's always a good time down there and it's also a celebration of Earth Day. So it's a combination ice cream social and Earth Day. It's from 12 to 2. So hopefully we'll see you all there.
Right. One of the things I'd like to point out in the correspondence, there's a couple letters of appreciation for a few of our police officers. I appreciate when residents always, when they send that in, and if you get a chance to take a look at it, it's some good stuff. Our police officers do a lot of great things. All right, the next item is a closed session item. It's real property negotiations, and the property is located at 899 Rosita, and that's the garden center location. The agency negotiator is our city manager. The negotiating parties are the city of Delray Oaks and Hannah Gardens of Delray Oaks. And what is under negotiation is the price and terms of their lease. So that is the one closed session item that we have. Are there any public comments related to this particular item? Seeing none. With that, I'll come back to the council and we will adjourn for closed session. And then after that, we'll re-adjourn for the to close out the regular meeting. All right, we've reconvened from closed session. I'll turn it over to the city attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. With respect to the one closed session item, an update was provided to council, and council provided direction to staff, but no reportable action was taken.
All right, our next meeting will be Tuesday, May 20th at 6 p.m. and we are adjourned.